The first thing I learned about her was that she never let anyone touch her things. Not her books, not her drawers, not the small wooden box she kept on her nightstand. She said it was full of old letters and photographs, but I never believed her. She treated that box like it was alive, never far from her reach, never left open. Never discussed. Even my father wasn't allowed to touch it. Once, when he joked about what might be inside, she smiled and said, "Some things are safer when they stay secrets." He laughed. I didn't. There was something in the way she said it, calm and certain, that made the air in the room go still. Over time, I began to realize that everything about her was locked away, not just the box. Her emotions came in fragments, small, precise doses of affection that never lingered. She smiled when she had to, comforted when it was expected, and loved only in theory. My father called her mysterious. I called her empty. But emptiness can be deceiving. She had a way of filling space without warmth, like a candle that flickers but never burns. When she entered a room, everyone adjusted themselves around her without realizing it. She didn't demand control. She was control. The house grew quieter after she came. My father stopped playing music in the evenings. Conversations thinned. Even laughter felt like an intrusion. It was as though her stillness infected everything. One afternoon, I found her in the living room, polishing the surface of that wooden box with a soft cloth. Her movements were delicate, almost reverent. I asked her why she kept it locked. She looked up, meeting my eyes for a moment too long. "Because it reminds me that love isn't meant to be opened," she said. "What does that mean?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "It means if you open something too much, you let the air in. And air ruins everything." That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. After she went to bed, I went to her room. The box sat on the table beside her bed, faintly lit by the moonlight filtering through the curtains. I knew I shouldn't, but I had to know. I needed to understand what she guarded so fiercely. I picked it up, it was heavier than I expected, and turned it in my hands. The lock was old, simple, the kind you could open with patience and care. But I didn't get the chance. Her voice cut through the darkness like a blade. "Put it down." I froze. She was sitting up, her face calm but her eyes sharp enough to stop me cold. "It's just a box," I said. "No," she whispered. "It's everything I promised myself I'd never give away again." Her words lingered in the silence. I set the box down and backed away. She didn't move until I left the room. After that night, something changed. She started locking her door when she slept. My father said it was for privacy. But I knew better. She wasn't protecting the box from me. She was protecting herself from the world. Weeks later, I caught her standing by the window with it pressed to her chest. Her expression was distant, almost tender. "Who's it for?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, she said, "For the person I used to be, before I learned that love and loss are the same word. Just said at different times." She smiled then, small, tired, almost human, and walked away. After that, I stopped trying to open her box. But sometimes, late at night, I'd hear the faint sound of it unlocking. The soft click of the clasp, and her breath catching like a secret she couldn't quite swallow. Whatever was inside, it wasn't love she was protecting. It was the part of her that still remembered how to feel. Days passed, and the box began to haunt me. Not because of what might be inside, but because of what it meant to her. It wasn't just an object, it was her pulse, the thing she guarded like a second heart. Every morning, she'd polish it before breakfast. running her fingers along the edges like she was tracing a memory. My father would sometimes tease her about it. One day you'll wear that thing down to splinters. She'd only smile, the kind of smile that hides a blade, and say, "Then I'll finally know it's safe." It was strange how someone could be so present yet so far away. She moved through the house like someone walking through a dream they didn't belong in. Every gesture, every word felt measured, rehearsed. As if emotion was a language she'd forgotten how to speak. One evening, I caught her sitting alone in the study, staring at the box again. The lamplight painted her face in golden shadow. Her fingers rested on the lock, not trying to open it, just touching it. Like she needed to feel its weight. "What's in there?" I asked. She didn't look up. "Regret," she said simply. "Whose?" She smiled faintly. "Mine." "His." "Does it matter?" I hesitated. "It might." That made her laugh, a quiet, hollow sound that didn't belong to joy. "You think everything hidden needs to be found," she said. "That's your mistake. Some things are kept because knowing them would only make you cruel." Her words stayed with me long after she left the room. I wanted to believe she was lying, that the box was nothing more than a symbol of her vanity. Another way to keep control. But the way her hands trembled when she touched it told a different story. It wasn't power she was guarding. It was pain. Late one night, I heard her in her room again. The faint scrape of the lock, the sound of wood creaking open. I crept to her door and listened. For a moment, there was only silence. Then came the whispering, low, broken, rhythmic. Words I couldn't make out, fragments carried on breath. A name, maybe. A plea. And then, the sound of the box closing again. The next morning, she looked the same as always, perfect, polished, untouchable. But there was something different in her eyes. Not sadness. Relief. At breakfast, my father reached for her hand. She didn't pull away, but she didn't return the gesture either. She just said, "You should be careful what you lock away. Sometimes what you bury keeps breathing." He didn't understand. He never did. But I did. The house began to feel smaller after that. Not from the walls closing in, but from the weight of all the things she refused to say. And I realized something that morning. Her heart wasn't locked away because she couldn't love. It was locked away because she once did, and it nearly destroyed her. Whatever was inside that box wasn't just memory. It was warning. The season turned, and with it, her silence deepened. The house began to echo differently. Every sound seemed sharper. Footsteps, whispers, the creak of the stair. The kind of silence that doesn't come from peace, but from fear of disturbing something fragile. The box never left her sight. If she was in the kitchen, it was on the table beside her. If she read in the garden, it sat on the chair next to her. Wrapped in a silk cloth as though it might bruise. My father joked once, "You guard that thing like it holds your soul." She looked up and said, "Maybe it does." It wasn't a joke. One afternoon, I saw her carrying the box into the attic. That room had always been my mother's space once, full of sunlight and dust. Old books and paint-stained jars. After my mother died, my father sealed it off. Until she came. I followed quietly, staying far enough to avoid the old floorboards that creak like warnings. Through the narrow crack in the attic door. I saw her place the box on the windowsill and sit beside it. She opened it. There was no hesitation, no fear. Just quiet precision. She lifted something out, a folded letter, yellowed at the edges. Tied with a piece of faded ribbon. She didn't read it. She just held it in her lap like a small, sleeping animal. After a while, she whispered, "I'm sorry." It wasn't the kind of apology you gave someone else. It was the kind you give to yourself when you realize forgiveness is too late. I backed away before she could see me. Later that night, I asked her why she kept going up there. She was by the fire, her face half in shadow. "There's something about attics," she said softly. "They keep things the world has forgotten but can't quite let go of." "What did you forget?" I asked. She glanced toward the stairs as if the attic could hear her. "Who I was before I learned to love like punishment." Her words chilled me, not because of what they meant, but because of how calmly she said them. "Do you ever think about letting it go?" I asked. She smiled, a slow, sad smile. "You can't let go of a cage when you build it yourself." That night, the wind howled against the house, rattling the windows. I lay awake, thinking of her in that attic, surrounded by ghosts she refused to bury. Sometime after midnight, I heard footsteps above me. Light, measured, deliberate. Then, the faintest sound of something being locked shut. The next morning, she looked lighter somehow. Almost at peace. The box was gone. When I asked her where it was, she just said, "Some secrets don't belong in the light. The sun ruins them." I didn't see it again for weeks. But sometimes, when I passed the attic door, I thought I heard a faint tapping sound, like something waiting to be opened. She pretended not to notice. And maybe that was her greatest trick. Convincing the world that keeping love locked away was a sign of strength, when really, it was how she kept herself from breaking again. The first snow came early that year. And with it came the feeling that something had shifted inside the house. My father grew quieter, distracted. As if he was beginning to see the cracks he'd ignored for too long. My stepmother, however, moved through the days with an eerie calm, the kind of calm that comes after a decision has already been made. The box had returned. It appeared one morning on the mantel above the fireplace, polished and perfect. As though it had never been gone. I noticed it immediately. So did my father. "Didn't you say you were done with that thing?" he asked. She didn't look up from the newspaper. "No," she said. "I said I buried what was inside." He frowned. "So what's in it now?" She smiled faintly, folding the paper with slow, deliberate movements. "Nothing," she said. "That's the point." But she was lying. I could tell. There was something different about the box now. The lock was still there, but there were faint scratches around it, as if she'd forced it open. And then sealed it again. That night, I found her standing by the fire, the box in her hands. She was turning it over slowly, her reflection caught in the brass clasp. "What's inside?" I asked again. Her eyes flicked toward me, unreadable. "Promises," she said. "Whose?" She hesitated, then said, "Ones I shouldn't have kept." The flames behind her threw long shadows on the walls. Her face looked softer in that light, but her voice stayed steady. "People think love is about giving. It isn't, it's about keeping. Keeping secrets, keeping faith, keeping yourself small enough to fit inside someone else's idea of who you should be." I didn't know what to say. Her words hung in the air, quiet but heavy. She placed the box back on the mantel, her fingertips resting on it for just a moment longer than necessary. "When I was young," she said, "someone told me my heart was too loud. That it scared people. So I learned to lock it away. Safer that way." "Did it work?" I asked. Her eyes lifted to meet mine. "I'm still here," she said. "Isn't that what matters?" But the way she said it, like survival was something shameful, made my chest tighten. Later that evening, when the house had gone still, I went back to the living room. The fire had burned down to embers, and the box sat where she'd left it. For a moment, I thought about taking it, about opening it once and for all. But something stopped me. It wasn't fear, it was understanding. Whatever was inside, it wasn't meant to be seen. Because the moment she opened it, she'd have to admit that what she'd locked away wasn't regret or love, it was herself. The next morning, she was gone. No note, no explanation. Just her coat missing from the rack. Her scent still lingering in the air. My father searched for her for days, but I knew she wasn't lost. She had simply left the box behind because she didn't need it anymore. When I finally dared to open it, I expected letters, photos, something tangible. But inside, there was only a single folded scrap of paper. You can't build love out of locked doors. That was all it said. I placed it back inside, closed the lid, and locked it again. And somehow, for the first time, I understood her. Her heart wasn't broken, it was contained. Too dangerous to open, too fragile to leave closed. The box wasn't her secret, it was her confession. Spring arrived quietly, like an apology the world didn't know how to say. The snow melted in slow drips from the roof, the air smelled faintly of wet soil. And the house, emptied of her, felt both lighter and lonelier. My father stopped mentioning her name. He moved through the rooms like someone searching for a sound that had been erased. But I couldn't stop thinking about the box. It still sat on the mantel, locked as ever. Sometimes, I caught my father staring at it the way someone looks at an unanswered question. He never touched it, neither did I, but its presence filled every silence. One afternoon, the sunlight caught it just right, making the brass lock gleam like an unblinking eye. I don't know what made me do it, I think I just wanted to hear it open. To let the house breathe again. So I took the key she'd left behind. The one that hung on a thin silver chain in her dresser drawer, and turned it in the lock. The click was softer than I expected. Inside, there was no note this time, no photograph, no trace of her perfume. Just air. Empty space. And yet, I swear when I leaned closer, I could smell the faintest whisper of smoke and lilac, her scent. The kind that lingers in clothes long after they've been folded away. That was when I understood, the box had never been meant to hold anything. It was the emptiness itself that mattered. It was where she put everything she couldn't say, everything she couldn't feel. The lock wasn't to keep others out. It was to keep herself from spilling open. She'd spent years living like that, tidy, composed, unreachable, because somewhere along the line, she'd learned that to love freely was to be destroyed by it. And so she built her armor, polished it, and called it a heart. I locked the box again and placed it back where it had always been. The sound of the clasp closing was final, like the last page of a story no one ever meant to finish. That night, I dreamed of her, not as she was, but as she could have been, barefoot in the garden, hair loose, laughing at something she couldn't explain. In the dream, she was holding the box, but it was open, light spilling from it like breath. When I woke, the morning light was soft, almost forgiving. I went downstairs, half expecting to see her there, half afraid I might. The box sat in its place, unmoved. But something in the air felt different, warmer, lighter. I think she had finally left for good this time, not just the house, but the part of herself that had been trapped in that locked box for so long. Later that day, I buried it beneath the old oak tree in the yard. The earth was damp, yielding, like it wanted to take it back. As I covered it with soil, I whispered what she never could, "You're free now." When I went inside, the house felt alive again. Not full, but breathing. The walls no longer echoed with her silence. The windows no longer looked like eyes that refused to close. The box was gone, but in its absence, something remained, a strange peace, a quiet understanding. Her heart had always been a locked box, but in the end, it wasn't the key that set her free. It was the choice to stop guarding what was already gone.